Joined now from Nairobi by Mervyn Patterson, one of the diplomats expelled from Afghanistan in 2007 by the government there after allegations that he and others were engaging in dialogue with the Taliban. Here also in the studio by Malalai Joya, one of Afghanistan's few elected female MPs. Thanks for joining us. Just let's hear from Mr. Patterson first of all in Nairobi. Exactly who, Mr. Patterson, do you think we, or at least the Afghans, should be talking to in the Taliban, and who are already being talked to in reality, even though some people may not like it?
Good evening. There are, I think, the vast majority of people in the Taliban, we're talking probably 80% of those at the field level, are non-ideological as far as we understand. These people are fighting for reasons which are primarily local. They may be tribal, they may relate to having been excluded from the local power structure. They may simply be because there are no other economic opportunities in these areas. These people are quite easy to deal with. The other group within the Taliban, the ideological stratum, as was mentioned earlier, that's a slightly different kettle of fish. It is, however, possible to interact with these people. Now, what is being done at present? There's really very little work being carried out at present. In 2007, there was a quite sophisticated program being developed in southern Afghanistan. It was brought to a halt abruptly at the end of that year. That focused on interacting, engaging with field-level, non-ideological Taliban, the moderates, as they're often described, and there was quite a good level of success. However, as I mentioned, that program was abruptly terminated.
Well, let me turn now to our Afghan guest to see quite why people would want to object to that. Malalai Joya, why the resistance to talking to at least those members of the Taliban who are not ideologues, who are ready to change sides?
Good evening. First of all, let me say that we have no moderate Talib in Afghanistan. These are terrorist Talib who are terrible makers in Afghanistan. Moderate Talib is, I think, if they are talking about this kind of Talib, will be there. It's enough to regret from their past and shame and don't want power anymore. But they are not talking moderate Talib. For example, many times Obama's administration and Karzai many times invite Mullah Omar as a moderate. These terrorist men, they want to decorate as a moderate to join the government.
But isn't the reality that there will always be leaders, generals, if you like, and there will be foot soldiers who can and should be persuaded to switch sides?
Could you repeat, please?
Aren't there always going to be, at the lower level, people who will switch sides in the Taliban?
You know that as we know, we Afghan, we experience, these are terrorist Talib that unfortunately US and its allies, they are playing game of Tom and Jerry with these terrorists and don't want to really make them powerless, and while already they are in power. Today one member of parliament is Talib, Mullah Abdul Salam Rakiti, one member of Senate is Talib, foreign minister of Taliban has good life in Kabul, and now they invite Mullah Omar also to join this government, and Gulbuddin Hekmatyar are this fascist man.
Yeah, there is real suspicion of the Afghan government. Do you blame them, Mervyn Patterson, the Karzai government, for standing in the way of what needs to be done? And if so, why would they do that? Absolutely.
They have systematically failed to carry out what that they are duty-bound to do, and that is to endeavour to reconcile all Afghans, to bring them onto the constitution, and to stabilise the country. They simply, okay, if I could go back to the years 2002, 2003 in southern Afghanistan, when everyone thought the Taliban had been defeated, those years saw the present government establishing a predatory network which systematically excluded certain tribal groups from power, which systematically set up, associates of theirs set up drug running networks, The
so
local
they lack the
administrations
motive, in your view, to change it. Forgive me for interrupting. I just want to give a last chance to Malalai Joya to comment. What is your fear when you hear the British Foreign Secretary and others like Mr. Patterson say it's time to talk to the Taliban?
It is just to deceiving themselves that to talk in this way, while they cannot deceive people in Afghanistan and also democratic people around the world. For example, now what the British government is doing and who have troops in Afghanistan this 7 years followed the policy of US government. For example, in Musa Qala in Helmand province, a famous killer Talib, they made chief district, Mullah Abdul Salam, who did massacre in the period of Taliban in Mazar-e Sharif, and say no vote against Taliban and do not expose the Taliban. How we should trust? And also another point I want to say that how they know who is moderate Talib, who is terrorist Talib, while Talib is Talib, well, and their nature is to bloodshed, to shed the blood of people and kill. Understood. And they are misogynist.
A brief, I'm afraid, 10-second answer to a complex question. How do you know who are the Talib you can deal with and those you can't?
You look at them, if I may add, if you look at the motivations for fighting, it's quite easy to plot out, to profile who is fighting and what the reasons for fighting are. For the majority of people, it's local issues, it's not ideological.
Okay.
And the only way you can find out why people are fighting is to start talking to them.
Forgive me for cutting an interesting conversation short, both of you. Thank you very much indeed. And Malalai Joya's book you can read, Raising My Voice, which has been published recently. Let's take a look at what you can read tomorrow morning in the newspapers. The Telegraph, first of all, back on expenses. MPs give themselves £9,000 expenses deal by stealth, apparently. Darling threatens banks over loans. Banks over loans is the headline in the FT. And then a string of headlines about what we've just been talking about. The Guardian, Britain and the US prepared to open talks with the Taliban. The Times, success in Afghanistan will need more troops, is the quote they put on the front page. And The Independent put the results of a poll on their front page on Afghanistan. Voters turn against the war in Afghanistan. The majority, according to their poll, thinks the conflict is unwinnable and wants troops to be withdrawn.